I'm Diane Donovan here for Classical Austin on KMFA in the beautiful Draylen Mason Music Studio of KMFA, here with my very special guest and friend, Craig Hella Johnson. Welcome, Craig.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be here. And the studio, every time I come here, I've been here so many times, but it still feels fresh and wonderful. Each time I get here, like it still feels new. So I love being in here. Thank you.
Well, we're here to talk about your wonderful oratorio, Considering Matthew Shepard. And this has been performed, I believe, 223 times all around the world. Something, it's probably going up by tomorrow, but you've had great success with this work. And essentially, it's bringing us the very tragic story of Matthew Shepard. In 1998, the 21-year-old gay young man was beaten and left to die on a fence in his native Wyoming. And such a difficult topic, obviously, but you created this oratorio that has certainly includes the tragedy, but with aspects of hope by the end. And at the start, we are just celebrating Matthew's life, an ordinary boy. But I want to go back. In 2014, you just did a segment of this, and I followed you along that path. And tell us how it began for you, because you didn't start writing it in 1998, but you were thinking about it.
Yeah. Thank you also for being a part of it with us for this time. And so many people here in Austin have been. It's been amazing. I love thinking about the way that this is an Austin-owned piece, and our friends here in Austin have surrounded the journey of this piece. I'm so grateful for that. Yeah, in 1998, when this happened, I was music director of Chanticleer. I was at a rehearsal. That's where I first learned about it from one of the singers in the group at that time, who many folks now know. He's been a part of Conspirare too, Matt Alber. But he was the first one to share with me about the story of Matthew Shepard. And that moment, that event, his death then also it pierced me so intensely, just into my heart. And as you said, I responded then. I don't know that I've ever had such a strong reaction to any life moment. It just felt so visceral, and there was sorrow, grief, just fear, anger, even rage, just like stuff that, and just as a human being, but also as a gay man growing up, I think I was aware of all the fears that we hold about all the things that just go on a daily basis, the things that people say, and maybe the sort of, micro violences that happen on the playground, and, that aren't so micro at all, but just all that stuff you kind of live with. And then all of a sudden, here's this event that also, in addition to it just being tragic and for this family and this young man and the loss of his life, but also brings all those fears into focus for a whole lot of people. And so anyway, on and on, the hugeness of the experience, I'll never forget. And over time, over some weeks and months, I just thought I have to respond to this, and that feeling just got clearer and clearer to me. Not that I went to doing anything about it quickly, as you well know. It just was a very slow burn, and I guess you could talk about like a 15-year incubation period, but it was my story with this, and and so finally I realized in about 2013, I don't think this thing's gonna leave me. It kept knocking on the door of my mind and my heart, and just like, respond, So I told folks at Conspirare, like, let's do a workshop, no harm done there, if I create something that I don't like or that's terrible or whatever, it's just a workshop. And I called it Considering Matthew Shepard. That was the workshop title, and we were going to do that on the first half, and then the second half we would do the Duraflare Requiem, and I thought, whatever happens in that first half, we'll have that beautiful piece to save us. and also maybe the comfort of that piece also, because it's such a comforting piece. Yeah, and I remember we had about 500 people. It was at St. Matthew's Episcopal Church, and we asked people to write comments and give feedback, and I mean, we just got voluminous notes back. It was incredible. And people drew pictures and wrote poems. I mean, it was just way beyond the beyond. So I could feel, one, the power of this story. It was even greater than I had imagined. And then I think setting it to music, making it personal, in those ways. People were so responsive. But what I learned in that, Diane, too, was for people who don't know the piece, too, it's in 3 parts. There's a prologue and an epilogue, so parts 1 and 3. And then the middle chunk of all the music is what I call the passion music. Like if we think about the St. Matthew Passion of Bach or St. John Passion, and this is the passion story, and we use that word passion in terms of passio, like suffering. So this is that suffering story so that was kind of the difficult stuff about what happened to Matt in October of 1998, and then his death. That's what's packed in the middle. But that was the only part that I shared in that workshop. Not all of it even, but some of it. And what I learned from that, too, many things I learned, but it was kind of devastating. I would say annihilating. And I would watch people leave, and they'd go into the parking lot. The concert wasn't done yet, but just kind of wandering, and they had kind of some of them a blank look, just almost, I would say, fully overwhelmed is what I was observing. And so that was really important for me to witness, because I thought, in a concert setting, how do we hold something like this in a way that takes care of people? I knew from Bach's example that he took care of his audiences, his listeners, with the St. Matthew Passion. We get chorales and arias that surround the narration that the evangelist sings. So I remember that great teaching and thought, how do I need to care for the audience? And so I'd bring new elements in. So then I got to work towards the premiere, but that was just how we all got started. Yeah.
Okay. Would you care to play a little piece for us and tell us about it?
Yeah, well, something that's kind of fun. Someone says, what's the first thing you wrote in that? And what was the first bit of music? Some folks who know the piece know it, but anyone who's new, I had to search a long time, really think about what's the structure of trying to hold a big story like this. And this was a story that I was nervous about trying to musically represent in any way, because it was so close to the hearts of millions of people around the world, literally. And so it felt very daunting. And but after a point, I thought, what could be a structural device here? Because we need something to hang our hat on structurally. And I tried so many things, but I thought, the fence is something that's common. That's common throughout this story. I thought, the fence was there before all this happened, on an innocent, regular day. The fence, if we think about it as an observing presence, was witness to the beating that night. The fence held Matt's body. The fence was there afterwards when we heard in the news reports thousands and thousands of people came to pay homage and to lay flowers and rocks and poems, and the fence is there after. So that, I thought, that's amazing. And then how to do that. And then as fate or whatever would have it, about a week later, I encountered, much to my delight, this book of poems by Leslie Newman, and that's called October Morning. And Leslie she's most famously known for a big book she wrote that is called Heather Has Two Mommies. And so that she got, worldwide famous for it. And that was way before anybody was comfortable talking about it. It was long before Ellen DeGeneres came out on TV, all that stuff, So, but Leslie wrote this beautiful book of poems about what happened because she was in Laramie. The University of Wyoming invited her to be a guest speaker. And so I was so delighted. I needed to get to focusing on, would she give me permission to use these fence poems? So within this collection were these 6 fence poems. And so thank goodness she was willing to give me permission to use this. So that became the first structural points. And sitting at KMFA here, it's kind of sweet because I know that listeners here listen to a breadth of music. But the very first thing I wrote was actually borrowed. I couldn't do it alone. And so I'll find that place in my piano vocal score here. But there is a wonderful Dufaya song, which mostly mezzos sing it, mezzo sopranos. This won't be in the right key, but I'll do it in the key of what I borrowed. But it starts out. And the lullaby, I'm going to do a very rough paraphrase, just without the words. It's a beautiful set from this set of, I believe, 6 or 7 songs for voice and piano. And I loved that a lot, and I knew exactly what that needed to hold, that lullaby. So I went to Leslie's poem, The Fence After That Wind, and used this for the opening. And then the choir enters in the third bar. Tenors prayed upon, the sopranos frowned upon, revered, feared. Oh, yeah. So there we begin that movement, but I didn't want to go in alone. So I began with that wonderful song. And some people will sometimes say, do you have a favorite movement? And I have several sort of favorite moments, but this is kind of in my heart got a special place because it was my entry point, and I absolutely love the song. And it's fun when a singer will recognize it, and sometimes they'll, this is so familiar. So that's where we began with that, and lots more I could say, but we'll keep chatting, and I can include more as we go.
Well, I remember when we were discussing this many years ago now, or quite a few years ago, I believe there was an intention to ask questions, because it's considering, it's not. And one of the questions being is whether or not love is an essential part of our nature. I think that was the quote, or very close. I might be paraphrasing here. But did you yourself come to a conclusion by the time you finished the work, or at the last part of the work? Is there a conclusion, or are we still ...
Yeah, you remember well. The question, I know, as I had been asking it too, was very much that. I think I had often said, with all that's so confounding in our lives and so difficult to understand, with the presence of darkness, of evil, of this incredible separation, of the deep hurtfulness that happens in violence and that's so a part of our lives. I mean, is love, with a capital L, anywhere to be found in our lives? Is this real, or shall we become just defended and protected and kind of live with that sense of not really, it's just brutal in a way. And then I was really thinking, I've always thought a lot about what Rilke shared in his letters to a young poet, his collection of letters that was so beautiful, lots of translations, but one that I remembered was, be patient towards all that is unsolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves. And then he says later, and I will get this even, it's a really rough paraphrase, but that just was, little by little, as you ask these questions, allow them to be living questions. And as you do that, you live your way into the answers. And there was this sense, Diane, too, that the implication is that your life itself becomes the answer. So in a way, it's both. There's an answer and it's a bit of a ... Yeah. What I find by asking the question with real sincerity and authenticity is that what that happens is it meets in another person perhaps their desire to ask a similar question. And in that already there's union, and there we can expand our connection, our sense of the openness of the heart. So I would definitely say, with gratitude, every time I ask the question, it begins to be answered a little bit more. Every time we sing and we profess from a place that stays open-hearted and sort of undefended, it has the potential to be a part of that answer. So I love your question, and it sure isn't one and done, is it? It's a living, daily answer in which we participate, and each of us is called to sort of do our part in answering it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there are so many momentous histories, things that have happened in the world, and I always have the notion, we will learn from this, and over time sometimes we forget. So you are helping to keep this alive, the memory of Matthew Shepard being a young man, an ordinary boy, a gay man, and this is reverberating and living again now. I wanted to ask...
I mentioned, sorry to interrupt, but just to say, when you say, remembering the question, there were times I think I thought naively at the time of creating this that this would be kind of a historical piece. Like, let's do this so we don't forget that this happened. Really that there was going to be a past tense. And it's, of course, heartbreaking to know that this is really current right now. And Matt's story rose to prominence, and we could have graduate seminars on asking the question why this particular story rose. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of stories and names that need to be said, and stories need to be told, and it's still happening today. It's increased dramatically since 2016 for these last 8 years, the hate crimes. And so, it's still really relevant, and we're glad to be singing and playing into this. Sad that it has to be the case, but you're absolutely right about keeping the question alive, yeah.
When you were starting this, I'm certain you had to get permission from Matthew Shepard's parents, Judy and Dennis. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's sort of a sweet little Austin moment. Michelle Josue is a filmmaker, and she was a high school friend of Matt's. They were in an American school in Switzerland together, and they were very, very close. Michelle made a movie, a film called Matthew Shepard Was a Friend of Mine. Very beautiful film. I recommend it. And we were in touch with each other, and I was aware of her connection to Matt, and then I had not met Dennis and Judy, and she had offered to help make those introductions. So Dennis and Judy were here it was one of the premieres of her film, so coming to, I think they were seeing it at Alamo, and so it was during that visit that I got to meet them, and it was a funny little thing. It was down at like Hula Hut, or right near the river, and we were sitting up on stools and had little drinks with umbrellas. This wasn't what I had envisioned, but it's a very Austin moment. Yeah. And it was very special. I was nervous because my heart was just into this. Like, I had already begun, and I was asking permission, but it was going to really need to be forgiveness, right? Maybe
right.
I've begun, but no, I needed full permission because I couldn't proceed without their blessing. And the moment that was very, sweet, powerful to me was actually, I only brought one thing with me. I didn't bring a bunch of texts, and obviously I couldn't bring music because I was ostensibly not writing anything yet. But I brought a poem. It's a poem by the Persian mystic Hafiz, translated by Daniel Ladinsky. And I had just typed it on a Word document, and I thought maybe I'll be able to use this. I'd folded up, it was in my pocket. Judy had been very quiet. She's very quiet for the first 10, 12 minutes and I was feeling a little nervous about it. Dennis piped in at about 10 minutes to say, "Don't worry, Judy's just very quiet. She's like a 10 on the introvert scale. She'll warm up." He was Mr. Affable. He was chatting away. And so I was like, "Thank you, that's helpful." But we were chatting, Judy and I, a little bit, and amazing to say this to Judy Shepard, the mother who had lost her dear son, but I thought, this is my opportunity. I don't know how else to say it, but just like it is. And I said, as I envision your dear son tied to that fence, open to the sky and the forest and the winds and the elements, if his soul could have sung, these are the words that I would imagine his soul might have been singing, and I just gave them to her. I'll just share you the text, and then I can share her response too. This is a little part of it. I won't do the whole thing, but it's called In Need of Breath. My heart is an unset jewel upon the tender night, yearning for its dear old friend, the moon. When the nameless one debuts again, 10,000 facets of my being unfurl wings and reveal such a radiance inside. I enter a realm divine. I too begin to sweetly cast light like a lamp. I cast light through the streets of this world. My heart is an unset jewel upon existence, waiting for the friend's touch. Tonight, my heart is an unset ruby, offered bowed and weeping to the sky. I am dying in these cold hours for the resplendent glance of God. My heart is an unset jewel upon the tender night. My heart is an unset ruby, offered bowed and weeping to the sky. So she read this, Diane, and she didn't say anything. She folded it up again, put it in her pocket, and she took out her, business card and wrote her personal cell phone number on it and handed me the card and said, I want you to do this piece. It's important. And that was our moment. Yeah.
I don't think I ever heard, even though we were talking a lot about it and over the years, I don't think I heard that exact story. And that's just so very beautiful. And as you were reading it, I can remember the melody. Can you sing a little bit of
Let's do a rough version, not like the tenors are supposed to say. Yeah. My heart is an unset jewel upon the tender night. My heart is an unset jewel, yearning for its dear friend, the moon. When the nameless one debuts again, 10,000 facets of my being unfurl wings and reveal such a radiance, such a radiance. I enter a realm divine. I too begin to sweetly cast light. Anyway, I'm going to butcher it and botcher it, but that's the sort of gist of the tune, and it's meant to be a real passionate. This is sort of one of the more operatic pieces, and it just meant that his soul soared, And
yes.
Like, what was so moving to me when the kind of vision came was just like here in this very weakened state. He's just been beaten by two boys his age, and he's tied up, his shoes are off, he's bleeding, he's left there alone. Completely that feeling of aloneness we all get. And yet, what is it that makes us? Like, Diane, that's the kind of thing that just kind of came, this radiance of each of us, that sort of like, the gift of life is not just the limitations of the body and this infinite, this finiteness of I can't speak to knowing, be able to articulate the mystery, but it's there. It's this, and then this incredible text. Like I want to say to Hafiz, and then Daniel Ladinsky, so from the 13th century, did you actually write this, thinking about this particular piece? When he says, I too begin to sweetly cast light like a lamp through the street. Matt's life and then death subsequently became a story that absolutely has brought light. We think about just practical things like the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Hate Crimes Prevention Act. And,
yes, 2009.
And the conversations that happened, and it was just light. And then Judy and Dennis's parents, instead of pulling the drapes and saying, I'm going to just have my grief only, they went outwards. How? And so it was light after light after light coming from this very tragic, difficult, dark state. I mean, there's so much light and hope in it. It's incredible. Yeah.
And I believe you mentioned that they will be in attendance at the.
They're coming to be with us that week. Yeah.
How wonderful.
I mean, and I think whether they actually sit in the concert hall, I always respect. They're going to be with us. That's why I say some days from that week. But I think she's sat through one complete time when we were in Boston, and Dennis maybe a couple of times, but I think it's a hard thing to keep reliving. They love it, and they support it, and I tell them no obligation. You never have to sit through it again.
Well, you mentioned the operatic moment, that's kind of an operatic moment, but you fuse many forms of music. There's certainly blues, maybe even a little bit of jazz resonance. What made you want to diversify the musical styles? Yep.
Real specifically, to build a really big tent. So cut to asking the questions about what is it that has divided us, is there any way what we can learn from that, like how we might try and undo this work of separation and division that we're all so clear about. We were just taught it generation after generation, look out for yourself, have to kind of defend and protect oneself to kind of survive. I thought about different people in my lives. One of the things I've told you, Diane, too, but I wanted this to be an oratorio, still in that choral tradition. That's an old-fashioned tradition of storytelling, like Mendelssohn, Elijah, and St. Paul, and Elgar, The Dream of Gerontius. These big storytelling arcs where people are doing it with solos and choruses and orchestras. And I wanted it to be that, but also to be super readable and accessible to folks who weren't deeply steeped in classical music also, but also to be satisfying for those who are, and just for human beings, And so I thought, I'm just going to be brave and sort of use this old tradition, but include all kinds of styles and respond to what is the moment need. So kind of the bluesy moment you refer to, Keep It Away From Me. I was thinking of a lot of people, but I was thinking about, someone coming to this concert. Let's say a friend invites a friend, or a husband invites a wife, or vice versa. One part of the marriage or the relationship is really into it. The other comes along for the ride, sitting there in the concert, kind of saying, "Oh, I see what we're doing here. This is a really difficult story to observe and think about," and all the stuff. And I thought, I want to acknowledge that person who might say, "Look, I just went out for a night at Bass Concert Hall. Wasn't looking to get all this deep into, forget it, get it away from me. It's not what I signed on for here. I thought this was entertainment." I want to be real and say, yeah. And so that I needed to kind of. So I thought, let's keep it just real and not very accessible. And then the mezzo sings, "Don't want to look on this. Never get near, flames too raw for me, grief too deep. Keep it away from me." And then, it builds and builds to be a big screaming, "Keep it away from me." Bigger and bigger, and then there's a little trio of kind of pips behind her, "Stay out of my heart." Just protection. And it's just a way of hopefully respectfully and compassionately just saying, "I see you here. I know you're here. I think it's not just you alone for whom this is difficult. Me too. This is just difficult. Can we, So I wanted to find agreement. I wanted to sort of one by one invite people in to say, not all music is represented here, obviously, but enough that says all are welcome here. So that was really the idea. And some of the old patriarchal forms, like there are places with Gregorian chant. I'm thinking about, let's see, I'll just find these. Kind of a favorite moment emotionally for me in the piece, a center point, is this. It's a poem by Tagore, Rabindranath Tagore, the Bengali poet and philosopher and artist and statesman. But stray birds, and at this point in the piece, I'm thinking about the first three stray birds are Matt, and then the two perpetrators, the two men who beat him and killed him, Aaron and Russell. And I remember Judy Shepard once speaking about that these three boys were connected. And this was not long after he died. I was just like, wow, is she like speaking from the oracle? It was so moving. But she does this triangle thing. It was for some reporter, and she said they're connected. And it was otherworldly to me, and I thought, they are. There's not just one victim here. I can pull up rage in a second when I think of Aaron and Russell, and they're still utterly unrepentant spirits, sadly. But I also know, because I went up to Laramie to meet their middle school friends and some of their elementary school friends, and I heard their extraordinarily sad stories, about their lives and what they had experienced too. And, so I thought, yeah, stray birds, the lostness of all of this when we continue to cultivate this culture. And so this poem just references stray birds of summer, come to my window to sing and fly away. And yellow leaves of autumn, which have no songs, flutter and fall there with a sigh. So I'm specifically having them sing this in a style that's recognizing Gregorian chant, which was also a musical form that was restricted to only men allowed to sing it. And women, nope. And so it's very intentional to say, let's bring that old form, see if we can, and these are men who are singing it in this instance, who sing this chant, stray birds of summer, come to my window to sing and fly away, and yellow leaves of autumn, which have no songs, flutter and fall there with a sigh. And that sets up the moment to me that's kind of gets me every time, is this line, once we dreamt that we were strangers. They sing, once we dreamt that we were strangers. We wake up to find that we were dear to each other. We wake up to find that we were dear to each other, dear to each other, dear to each other, dear to each other. And then right after that they sing a little phrase of we are all sons. We are all sons of fathers and mothers. We are all sons. We are all rivers, the roar of waters. We are all sons. So that kind of moment encapsulates, and if I'm ever performing, we're always performing it with women, and I say immediately, at this moment, please, for me, understand why I use that, but then let's open it up. We are all
yes.
sons, daughters, one in this family together. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. That's another favorite moment. My heart is an unset jewel. I remember stars and, deer song. And there was, speaking of deer, not D-E-A-R, but D-E-E-R. Tell us about that.
Matt's body was found 18 hours after he was left there. He was seen first by a cyclist who was just happened to be some distance away, and he thought he was looking at a scarecrow. But then he got closer and realized this was a human body being held at the fence there, and he called the authorities. The sheriff came, her name was Reggie Flutie, and she spoke kind of amazingly about what she discovered there. She said the heat next to where Matt was on the fence was just on the ground incredibly hot, just so hot. And just prior to her getting there, she had seen a deer that had gotten up. And so we have this beautiful image of the fact that this deer had found its way to Matt's side to accompany him. We envisioned, she said, because of how warm it was, been there for hours. So this beautiful image that somehow when we feel so alone, somehow creation finds a way to meet us, to be present to us. It's just sort of mysterious, powerful revelation one after another in this whole story that's threaded. So, yeah.
Has the piece changed over the years? I mean, a lot of composers revamp things or just adjust a little bit. Has it? No.
Only little bits, yeah.
Good.
In one kind of chunk of a bit, we had to let go. In the second to last movement is a movement where it's called Thanks, and it's meant to express a lot of gratitude, even in the midst of all this difficulty and of our lives, of the world. We used a poem by W.S. Merwin first, but because of some challenges with the rights and the costs, and we had to let that go. So that changed, and Michael Dennis Brown wrote a new text for us called Even in This Rain, which many people love even more, they've told me, so all respect to Merwin too. And that's a change. I've shortened a few things. We eliminated one piece from when we do it. It felt just redundant to me. I love it.
Yeah.
It's called Gently Rest. And but we got to do that piece for the interment of Matt's ashes at the National Cathedral. And it was great because Gene Robinson was preaching the sermon, and one of the themes he said was going to be, finally, Matt can rest gently and safely here in the cathedral at this safe place. And so I was like, wow, this movement was written for that occasion, so it's found its purpose. And and there are little things we tweak. I don't do all the repeats in this one section. I add a few here, but it really hasn't, Diane. I've really stayed pretty committed to it, and I've put it through a lot of vetting tests. And I think I might have mentioned to you too. I mean, several Broadway producers have approached me, wanted to see could we do this for Broadway, and I was always open and interested to it. But I finally made the call to just stop those conversations. I consulted with the wonderful producer, Tom Curtihy, and many folks in our area know him. And Mark Seraph was kind to connect me with him. And I just wanted his counsel too, because he's produced so many big, wonderful productions on Broadway. After those conversations too, Tom was really very supportive. He really loves the piece, and had kind of really advised too. He said, I think it's just exactly what it's meant to be. Yeah. Don't mess with it. And so that was good enough for me to kind of find rest with that too. And but it could have gone through some major changes.
That's what I would fear.
Yeah.
Broadway is fun, but sometimes it can be overwhelming, and this story on its own is overwhelming. But when I've seen it, and I've seen it several times, it's very intimate. Mm-hmm. And even at Bass Concert Hall, which is a large hall, it will be intimate. You still have, 29 singers was what it was,
like 30,
and 7 or 8
30,
or 6 to 8 musicians,
I'm
instrumentals.
conducting from the piano, and and then 8 musicians total. So it's a special group of musicians. We're bringing Camilla Tassi, and she'll do beautiful visual holding of the space. We have a set designer we're working with from New York, and Rod Kaspers and Elliot Forrest are very involved in the directing and staging, and so Robert Harlan's very involved in lots of the directing. The production, and so he's. It's a great committed team, and this is definitely a new production too. So folks who have seen it a good bit will see some new elements too.
Okay.
Doing some new things too. We'll have just one person singing all the words of Matt. Often there'll be different singers who sing Matt's words, and in this one there'll be a through thread. Brian Giebler is a tenor who sung with us before, but not for a while. It's from New York. Beautiful tenor, can kind of handle all the the aspects of Matt. And so,
Well, is there anything else you would like to play for us today, and anything else you'd like to let us know or let our listeners know about the upcoming performance on Thursday, October 3rd, Bass Concert Hall, 7:30 p.m.?
Let's see, a couple things. Well, we're just super excited also to be doing this with Texas Performing Arts.
Yes.
I love that place. I love what they're doing there. And Bob Bursey's TPA is very special to me. Just so I feel very proud that this is on that series too, and very grateful. So we're just thrilled and look forward to doing more with them. And we have some folks will know if they've maybe traveled with us that sometimes we have a sort of a massed choir of singers who may appear in the audience at a certain point or two, and that can be a very powerful thing dramatically. And we are including that in the Bass performance, and we have, I think, about 700 singers in that choir, which will be just thrilling. A lot of folks from universities in the area, high school singers, a really broad spectrum. So they're going to be bringing their beautiful voices and their love, and yeah, so that's pretty neat. I could sing The Innocents or something. Shall we do that as a closer, since we're a music outfit here at beautiful KMFA? I always need to look again because I'm more in my conductor head with this than singing or playing.
You only wrote it, but okay. I know what that, yeah.
Let's find the page
What the heck did I do?
No, believe me.
No, it's so beautiful.
I just kind of ask some questions too. When I think of all the times the world was ours for dreaming, when I think of all the times the earth seemed like our home, every heart alive with its own longing, every future we could ever hope to hold. All the time our laughter rang in summer, all the times the rivers sang our tune, was there already sadness in the sunlight, some stormy story waiting to be told? Where, oh where has the innocence gone? Where, oh where has it gone? Rains rolling down wash away my memory. Where, oh where has it gone? And to the choir, when I think of all the joys, the wonders we remember, all the treasures we believe we'd never ever lose, too many days gone by without their meaning, too many darkened hours without their peace. Where, oh where has the innocence gone? Where, oh where has it gone? Vows we once swore, now it's just this letting go. Where, oh where has it gone? Where, oh where has the innocence gone? Where, oh where has it gone? Rains rolling down wash away my memory. Where, oh where has it gone? Oh, thanks.
Craig Hella Johnson with Innocence from Considering Matthew Shepard. He wrote the entire piece, and he is also the artistic director of Conspirare, the founder of Conspirare, and we will have the opportunity to hear this work again in Austin. And that will take place on Thursday, October the 3rd, Texas Performing Arts at Bass Concert Hall. And I just want to say, I want to thank you for creating this piece, and thanks to Conspirare, because it doesn't work without amazing singers. But thank you for bringing this message as well throughout the world now. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane, so much.
Yeah.